Here's the 1-2. Giankowski to Schumann. And the ground ball will end things. A 3-2 win for the Oakland Athletics. One more win for the Oakland fans.
A W on a day that everybody in the Bay needed one.
That's how it sounded for the final Oakland A's game at the Oakland Coliseum after 57 years. I was there in the bleachers, and today on Crafting the Call, we're going to discuss how broadcasters say goodbye when a team leaves a city. I'm Josh Suchon from the Albuquerque Isotopes.
And I'm Jesse Goldberg-Strassler from the Lansing Lugnuts. Do you know what I appreciated most about that clip of the A's beating the Rangers, the final game at the Oakland Coliseum, Josh, was the reaction by the players, right? There's no great jubilation.
There was a memo that was circulated publicly about how the A's players and coaches were strongly encouraged to leave the field immediately. They were worried about fans running onto the field and about their safety. That did not happen. Again, I was at the ballpark. There was two streakers who ran onto the field. Not streakers, they just ran on the field. They were fully clothed. And but the fans did not storm onto the field, and the players stayed out there. And the players made a decision for the last homestand. They were going to wear the Kelly green uniforms because it said Oakland across the chest. Very heartfelt, very emotional. And it was all the emotions you can imagine being there. And then how do the announcers find the right words to convey this for his and her calls?
I think we should go right to Ken Korach.
To set the stage for Ken Korach, he started his broadcasting career in the major leagues as a full-time announcer with the Oakland A's in 1996. 1996 was the year that the A's started in Las Vegas at Cashman Field because Mount Davis was being built. So his first year broadcasting the A's, he's at a minor league ballpark. Oh, by the way, that was the minor league ballpark where he had been broadcasting. He broadcasted for the Las Vegas Stars. And then as Ken finally reaches the major leagues at the Oakland Coliseum is when Mount Davis is being built. He was the number 2 announcer behind the amazing Bill King. And then after the passing of Bill, Ken ascended to the number 1 position in 2006. And he has been the lead voice on radio for the A's since 2006. And this is how Ken Korach summed up the final play.
Now the 1-2 pitch. Here it is by Mason. He turns, he's ready, he throws in, it's swung on and hit to third. He was left up with it. Schumann, he turns, he throws, and the A's have won it. Mason Miller slams the door on the Rangers as the curtain comes down on 57 incredible years of A's baseball at the Coliseum. It's over. It is over after 57 years of thrills, of heartbreak, but always a sense of community, of fans belonging to something bigger, something special. It was baseball. It was Oakland A's baseball that brought so many people together. There's, of course, a profound sense of loss, of hurt, and yet the memories hopefully will last forever. May those memories be a blessing.
That is a eulogy.
And it felt like a funeral. So I went to all 3 of the last games. And, the first day in the parking lot with friends, tailgating, there's food, there's drinks, it's a party. And you see a lot of people you haven't seen, hugs. And I remember leaving going, It's like you go to a funeral and the drinks are flowing and you're smiling, you're happy to see people. And then you leave and you go, yeah, someone died. In this case, it was a concrete fixture that died. I don't know how Korach got through that. Tell us the meaning behind his final sentences, Jesse.
So yeah, I talked to you immediately after this. May their memory be a blessing. Something that you say in Jewishness, and Ken is Jewish, as am I. When you have lost someone very close to you, and this is how you are consoled. It is the kindest, most loving, most supportive thing that you say in Jewishness, that this is what you were taught to say to help someone through it, because it's understood this is hard. And there's a whole Jewish ritual to mourning where everyone comes to take care of you, where you are supposed to stay at home and everyone brings food and does everything for you, because there's just this understanding you should not rush back. And what everyone says is, may their memory be a blessing. And so that's why I immediately thought this is a eulogy, that he went from the call and from the broadcaster's call of Mason Miller slams the door. Then the curtain comes down. And then Ken, having it all sink in, it's over. It is over. And then trying to sum up those 57 incredible years. It was baseball. It was Oakland A's baseball, the community, the people, the togetherness. And he described the profound sense of loss and of hurt. And then he finishes with that profound, loving, supportive condolence. So let us take stock. Let us take solace. Let us come together and think of the memory. And that is how we are going to be able to move on. Let their memory be a blessing. Let the memory of the Oakland Coliseum and the community and the people that filled it and all those relationships that were built because of it, everything that happened this past 57 years, whatever that means to everyone personally, let that be the blessing moving forward.
It's beautiful. I think that if you don't know the background of what Jesse just explained, the Jewish faith, even if you don't know that, it's a powerful call. It's a special call, and it has meaning. Even if you don't understand the religious aspect of it, it has meaning. But then when you hear what Jesse just described, you understand even more how Ken Korach blended the fundamental play-by-play, even saying he's ready, he sets, he delivers, right? He's the fundamental play-by-play 101. Says the out, a pause, and then into what Jesse just recapped. It's over. It is over. I can't imagine how much emotion was flowing through Ken Korach's body during that, and just a powerful call.
With Jenny Kavner's call that we opened this up with, I want to discuss two different aspects about it. One being the post-production Moneyball music that was put in. But the first is that one last win. And what goes unspoken is it's one great loss. The A's win the game. And I had a friend immediately message me to say, Mason Miller closing that out, that comes with more pressure than trying to close out a playoff game. So it is the win. And yet the meaning of win and the meaning of loss, and Ken saying a profound sense of loss. The Moneyball music, the Moneyball theme has such great sadness behind the theme of this A's Moneyball team that is competing against the odds and putting together and trying to figure out how are we going to be able to compete. And so where are the advantages that we can find? Can Scott Hatteberg help us, and why can he help us? And this team goes on to win 20 games. And yet I would argue the Moneyball movie and the way that it was chosen to be scripted and then edited and dispersed, is a biopic of Billy Beane, and the whole movie seeks to answer the question, why, when John Henry was ready to pay him everything, did he stay in Oakland? That the Moneyball movie is really still a love letter to Oakland, that Oakland matters, and now Oakland is losing its team with the Moneyball music and that sadness behind.
And ultimately, it's loss. The Moneyball team did not win the World Series. That was part of 4 straight heartbreaking first-round losses where they had a chance to close it out and couldn't. That's basically the history of the A's, is loss. You lose your best players. They get traded away and sold away, and they don't get re-signed. And it gets burned down and built back up over and over. And then even when they do win the World Series in 1989, there was an earthquake that happened. There's no parade. There was no parade in downtown Oakland. It was a muted celebration out of respect for the loss of homes and lives. And just you mentioned Mason Miller. Okay, so in the 9th inning, there was some fans that ran on the field. There was multiple, what do you call them, smoke bombs that got thrown onto the field, some water bottles that got thrown on the field. And there was really a sense of, come on, Mason, close this game out before it gets really bad, right? Not just Coliseum security, but Oakland police are standing to let it be known, do not run out here. And so there is really a sense of, oh no, is there going to be something really bad that happens on this field? Is there going to be a forfeit because the anger is so palpable that fans just can't take it? So the pressure for Mason Miller was not just, you have to close this out, but you need to close it out now. You cannot walk this guy. I remember there was a delay with 1 out and the count was 3-2. And I remember just thinking, if he walks this guy, man, it's going to be rough here. But he got a strikeout, and then he got the last out. And then from there, it was just the love fest and the cry fest. But, man, the pressure that was on Mason Miller, seriously, I don't know if it's the 7th game of a World Series, if he will ever have that type of pressure.
It does make me think a little bit of Grant Balfour, of these closers coming into Oakland from elsewhere, for Grant from down under, and being loved. And here's Mason from Pittsburgh, and he's a rookie, and this is his first year as a closer. And how that relationship became what it is. And I know him, and he is such a person. Did you see Max Schumann waving the flag?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Seth Brown, left fielder, I was sitting in the left field bleachers. A lot of tipping of the cap, clapping all the fans. It was palpable. Yeah, and the way the players came out to the mound. Kotze's speech, oh my goodness. I remember I was the Oakland A's beat writer from 2004 to 2006 before I switched to broadcasting. And I remember writing a story when the A's traded for Kotze. And I remember it was a conference call. And I said at the end of the conference call, I said, Mark, for A's fans who don't know you, what should they know about the type of ball player that you are? And Kotze, I'll never forget what he said because it was so true. He said, you come watch me play once, you may not be that impressed. He said, you watch me for a 3-game series and you might be a little bit impressed. He goes, I think I'm the type of player that grows on you. And that by the end of the season, you'll appreciate what I can do to help a team win. And it was so profound because it was true, right? He's not a 30-homer guy. Didn't bat .350. But he helped you win with average and hits and his throwing. Oh, my goodness, his arm and his ability to run down plays and just his steady, even keel, the way that he was a leader, him and Jason Kendall in that 2016. And I think at the time that the A's made the playoffs in 2006, I'm pretty sure Jason Kendall and Mark Kotsay were the two active players who had the longest time without going to the postseason, and what it meant for those two to finally make it. And I think Kotsay was the right individual to be guiding the A's in the final season, knowing what Oakland means to the team and vice versa. Not easy for Kotsay to be managing the last 2 years for the A's with a team that, for the most part, is mostly a bunch of guys who are at AAA. I mean, he was the right man to do it. And, yeah, powerful, emotional day.
Mark Kotsay took over for Bob Melvin, and how loved was Bob and how respected. So a difficult spot to immediately step into, and with a team that did not have very much talent. And I remember asking a member of the A's organization, how do you think things are going this year? And this was last season when things were really tough. And he said, they have filled that clubhouse with class and professionalism emanating right down from Kotz. And that class and professionalism goes right up to the broadcast booth. But that is where you start, that you are going to be a professional, you are going to be classy and thoughtful, and you understand the bigger picture. But as you show up for work each day, you understand your job and you will comport yourself accordingly.
Yeah, I mean, I talked to Korach Wednesday and Thursday. Talked to Jenny a little bit before Thursday's game. And you can feel the weight on their shoulders about how to call these games, the right tone, the right emotion. Because it's not a celebration, but you don't want to be depressed, right? You want to, if you've ever given a eulogy at a funeral, you want to make people think. You want to make people smile. You want to make people laugh. And ultimately, you're probably going to cry. But you can't cry when you're giving the eulogy. You can cry later. Because once the person giving the eulogy cries, then everybody cries and it's a mess. Then you need a lot of Kleenex. So you have to save your tears for later. And I thought that Jenny and Ken were really good.
And Dallas Braden and Vince Cotroneo. So this crafting the call, we begin with Oakland, but the history of baseball teams relocating stretches back beyond that. So we've got some more broadcast clips for you and I to check out and see how these broadcasters handled the same situation.
1969. 2-0 count to Sledge. Syne checks the sign. The catcher, Matt Trainer. Feels low into the dirt. That ball will be thrown out of play. Three-0 count. 2 outs. Meiser Asturis led off the inning. Flying out to right. Valpascucci grounded out to second. 3-0 pitch in there for a strike. You can see all the flashbulbs going off as that pitch made its way in towards Termel Sledge. Syne works. This ball popped up left side. Mike Mordecai, go figure, a former Expo to make the catch. And that is a very sad day, the end of a sad day for the city of Montreal, for our country. The last out at Olympic Stadium, a fly ball by Termel Sledge to former Expo Mike Mordecai at third base. Frank Robinson will take that ball and put it in his trophy case. An historic ball it is. On a night when the Montreal Expos fall 9-1 to the Florida Marlins.
I think it would be appropriate and a very good gesture if the Expo players and staff would step out of the dugout and take one last bow here and show their appreciation for the support that they have received here over the years and this year from these Expo fans.
We saw this earlier before the game had started. All the footage from Jerry Park in 1969 to the move of the Expos to Olympic Stadium in 1977. Steve Rogers, Gary Carter, the Hawk. What a career he had here as an Expo. The Rock.
Okay, this clip goes on and on much longer without any words being spoken by the announcers. Jesse, we were talking about the burden on the announcers to say the right thing. The burden on the game day presentation staff and what they are going to do for this final game.
Whew.
Right? And so I thought about that because the song that was first played, this really sad, somber song, I will remember you, will you remember me, the first two lyrics. And how that sets the tone, right? The super sad song. In Oakland, it was celebration, Kool and the Gang. There's a party going on right here. And just the contrast of those two things and how that sets the tone. There's a few things you can't control. In Oakland, day game, sunny, just gorgeous. The best of the Bay Area. Montreal, you're inside a dome. It's a night game, right? Things that you can't contrast. It looked like they were playing a video there inside Olympic Stadium. The A's did their video before the game. Ken Korach narrated it. It's gorgeous. Barry Zito, former Cy Young Award winner, sang the national anthem. There was a flyover, a Thursday day game that doesn't matter. And there was a flyover at the Coliseum, again, because it's open. You can do these things. And so the power of the game day presentation crew and what they do right after the game, in addition to how they want to set things up between innings. The A's went out of their way to constantly show their employees, groundskeepers, security, ushers, people who are out of a job today, the day that we are recording this, the day after the season, and how profound that was. It's tough. It's emotional. You're talking about people who are losing their jobs, and it's their responsibility to properly set the tone for everyone who's at the ballpark.
I was struck by the broadcaster saying, these players should come out of the dugout right now and show some love to this crowd.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
Which I'm not going to say he was wrong. In fact, I think he was right on. I think that's a broadcaster understanding the moment. And that's a broadcaster understanding that Canada is losing one of its two major league teams. So for crying out loud, show some appreciation. I did not like that Frank Robinson was getting that final ball. I'm going, give this ball to Montreal, for crying out loud. I thought that this was handled great by the broadcast crew, and the pictures that were shown were striking. And there's wonderful UP giving hugs. Oh, man.
The words, a sad day for our city and a sad day for our country, that hit me.
This is a devastated broadcast crew, and with similarity to Ken. I also thought that, and to give a little bit of context here for the loss of the Expos, relocating to Washington, D.C., this was September 29th. This was 2004. There had not been a Major League Baseball team to relocate in 3 decades, not since the 1970s. But the Expos had been playing part-time in Montreal and playing in Puerto Rico, and you just saw that this was coming. I also think that an enormous similarity, Josh, is there was such great talent on this Montreal team, like there always had been. And there's such great talent on this Oakland squad, as there always has been.
Yeah, when you get to the final game of a team, occasionally there's been times in other sports where you don't know that it's the final game, right? This has been coming for 2 years for Oakland. And as you mentioned, for Montreal, they were nearly contracted, right? There was this idea that they were going to be contracted. And then it was this 3-team ownership swap that was happening. And they're playing in Puerto Rico. And Major League Baseball is taking over control of them. And so you knew this was coming, but it still doesn't change what happens those final days is when it really hits you. And then even for me, I feel like a bigger sense of sadness today, the day after the A's final game, than I did yesterday. Because yesterday it was love. There were people together. Today it's like first day of the rest of Oakland's life without any of the 3 sports teams.
Let me throw something at you. You went back, you listened to the very last game for the Brooklyn Dodgers before going to Los Angeles. You said to me, this does not sound any different for Vin Scully. Because Vin is traveling. Vin is going from Brooklyn to Los Angeles. He's in his 20s. Mm-hmm. But I think, and you can go right to our theme, how does a broadcaster say goodbye to a city? I think that fans need the broadcaster to be their spokesperson at this time, to speak what they are feeling, to speak with them and for them. And that lays the burden right on Jenny and Dallas and on Ken and on Vince. And that is what this Montreal Expos broadcast team is feeling, is we are going to deliver the sentiments from Montreal and Canada.
Yeah, this broadcast team did not go to Washington, D.C., right? You think about, we did the episode about Ernie Harwell, and Joe Block joined us. And Ernie Harwell's words were, "And Tiger Stadium is no more." But they had a new ballpark, yes. Right? This is losing completely. It hits home for Montreal because this was a country losing a team. It hits home for Oakland because the Warriors moved across the bay, the Raiders leave, and all of that was, but we'll still get the A's. And now the A's are leaving. And so, and I think you have to balance things between, in your heart, you're thinking it's not supposed to be happening. This is not right. But I still have a job to do and I have an employer to answer to. But as you said, Jesse, to speak for the fans, to speak for them, and the delicate balance between realizing this should not be happening, but it is, and trying to convey those words. It's these moments that are, I think these are more challenging than a no-hitter, than a perfect game, than a straight steal of home, all the different episodes that we've had here, because those are about controlling your emotions when happy, amazing things are happening or goofy things are happening. This is finding the right words and controlling your emotions when it's sadness and anger.
If you don't mind, let's go back to the 1970s. Let's go back 3 decades before the Expos and see how it was handled in a very different sort of spot. And I think that we can find parallels and differences to draw.
So it's 7-5 on 7, 11-0 for Washington, 5 and 9 and 5 for New York.
pinch hitter for the Yankees for Jack Aker, Philippe Alou. Alou hitting .286 with 8 home runs, 21 doubles, 6 triples, and 69 runs batted in. The pitch to Philippe, a ground ball is short. Toby up and it bobbles it, picks it up, throws to first, in time to get Alou. Good recovery by Toby Harrah. And we are now 2 outs away from the conclusion of Major League Baseball in the nation's capital. Hopefully, it won't be too long. The fans have demonstrated their enthusiasm tonight. The batter is Bobby Mercer, who takes a pitch in for the strike. $14,460 showed up tonight. The 1-strike pitch is outside, 1-1. Mercer has flied to center, hit a 2-run homer, his 25th of the year. Then he grounded out first to the pitcher covering and walked. He swings and misses strike 2. 1 ball and 2 strikes on Bobby Mercer. He'll be the second leading batter in the American League, trailing only the batting champ Tony Oliva of the Minnesota Twins. The 1-2 coming is outside. It's 2-2. Bobby Mercer batting for the New York Yankees with 1 out and nobody on in the 9th inning. The 2-2 from Gazenda. Went back to Joe. He spears it. He throws to Tom McCraw at first, and there are 2 outs. Some youngsters are coming out on the field. This will not be a complete game unless they get back. This will not be a complete game unless they get back. So we certainly hope that this ball game can be concluded. The players now are clearing the field as pandemonium is broken loose, and the field is filled with many souvenir hunters. The Senators lead 7-5 with 2 outs. Police are trying to restore order, but the crowd continues to mill all around the field. Some fans are scooping up dirt. More and more now are converging on the field. The Senators are 1 out away from victory. The Yankees have 2 outs in the top of the 9th inning.
Realistically, they're a lot closer to defeat because they'll never get this ball game underway again. The bases are gone. There's a patrolman standing on home plate, another one on the mound, and they're very rapidly becoming outnumbered.
A mass of bodies on the field. Most of them just standing there, getting a glimpse of RFK Stadium, the site of Major League Baseball, perhaps for the last time. It may well be that the Senators will be denied their final victory. Now fans are converging upon the scoreboard. And again, the souvenir hunters are trying to get anything from the stadium. they are succeeding, and reinforcements have been called, and hopefully the field will be cleared so we can get the final out in this historic ball game.
Realistically, we wanted to take the National Guard to get them out here, because there won't be much left of the scoreboard. It's like an army of ants out there going through the jungle. They're just chopping away at everything they can get their hands on.
It's a shame they couldn't have waited for one more out, but they didn't. And now the job at hand is to try and clear the field so this ball game can continue. The remainder of the fans, and I don't believe anyone has left this ballpark tonight, are watching the activity on the field. But it is activity every place. The scoreboard has been completely decimated. Nothing remains. I hope Norm Hammer does.
I wonder what's going on in Normie's mind out there right now.
I believe Bert Hawkins has just said that this game will be forfeited to New York.
It has been.
Well, it's a strange way to lose a ball game. It's a strange way to wind up Major League Baseball in the nation's capital. But I guess it's been a topsy-turvy season. No one believed that there would not be Major League Baseball in the nation's capital. But it's sad to report there no longer is. How long Major League Baseball will stay away remains to be seen. The lights flicker here at RFK Stadium. And as the lights flicker, the hopes of that long-awaited pennant die with the lights. The last pennant, 1933. The last time the Senators were in the first division, 1946. The fans of Washington, over the years, have supported ball clubs that never have measured up on the field to the other clubs in the league. We can only hope that their loyalty over these many years will be rewarded in the near future with a new Major League franchise. Baseball is a great game. It's a game for everyone. But I think maybe George Soucy put it best when he said, Washington is not the capital of the United States. Washington is the capital of the world. And can you imagine the capital of the world not having Major League Baseball?
It's a very powerful ending, Jesse.
Ron Mencheen. I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly. Ron Mencheen with Tony Roberts. It would be 34 years before Washington would get a team. And I grew up, Josh, they would bring Major League Baseball exhibition games to RFK Stadium just to take the temperature, just to see, are there baseball fans here enough to support a team? And my family would always go just to show, yes, Washington, D.C. can support a team. And the ironic thing is we just watched the Expos lose their team to Washington, D.C. It would not be until 2019 that Washington, D.C. would boast a Major League Baseball champion. What are your thoughts on how Mr. Mencheen called this final game for the Senators?
I took a lot of notes during this, and because one of the things I enjoy about this is I try to put myself in their shoes. What would I want to say? What would I do if this became my responsibility? When Felipe Alou is up at the start of the inning, first of all, I thought, and Felipe Alou becomes the manager of the Expos, the best Expo team ever that never got a chance to go to the postseason because of the strike. But Ron is describing Felipe Alou's batting average and his stats. And what immediately came to my mind is I want to know, how many years did he play for the Senators? How many games played did he have for the Senators? And so at some point during the broadcast, I would want to make sure that I say, this is how long he was a member of the A's, of the Expos, of the Senators. This is how many games he played. This is what he has meant to the city, to this team. There was another part when he said that we are 2 outs away. I really enjoyed that. When he mentioned the crowd, 14,460. And it made me think about the difference between how many people showed up for the final Senators game and how many people showed up at the Oakland Coliseum yesterday, where the place was basically sold out, 50,000. And then you start to hear the phrase youngsters on the field, souvenir hunters, and they are succeeding as souvenir hunters. And I think that Tony Roberts, I think that Ron's the play-by-play guy who we hear most. And I think that Ron is trying to be very diplomatic. And then I think Tony Roberts just chimes in and says, we ain't playing. This ain't going to happen. We need reinforcements. This ain't going to happen.
It's so good by Tony. Tony was the longtime voice of Notre Dame. There's your honesty that we were looking for.
I think it's also a time capsule into sporting events and fans running on the field. We've done episodes about this, where Chris Chambliss hits a walk-off home run and he is running through the crowd as they try to take his helmet off. About how Reggie Jackson looks like a running back trying to avoid fans as he's running in from right field. Fans celebrating on the field. We did an episode where the Mets win in 69 and 73. And the fans are on the field as the out is being made at the final out. And so at one point, I'm pretty sure it's Ron, and he says, it's a shame they couldn't wait for one more out. It was like this foregone conclusion that, of course, the fans are going to run on the field. But can't you just wait until the game is over and then destroy the place?
Let Mason Miller get Jankowski to ground out, for crying out loud.
There's a really loud sound that you hear at one point, and then I'm pretty sure it's Tony Roberts who says the scoreboard has been decimated.
When they mention the name Norm Hammer, that is the scoreboard operator. They are fearing for his safety.
It made me wonder, did the Washington Redskins, as they were known at the time, did they play at RFK back then? And what did the field look like if they had a game that next Sunday?
Pretty sure they did play at RFK.
He also says at one point the bases are gone, mentions that the police are out there and they are rapidly outnumbered. That's a wild scene. And I'll be honest, because I was aware that this happened in the final game for the Senators, I was fearing at the Oakland Coliseum, will this happen? And I mentioned earlier about the pressure on Mason Miller. Get these last outs before something else happens. There was multiple smoke bombs that were thrown on the field. I think the first one was around the 6th or 7th inning. I remember just thinking, how many of these did people bring? Are they out of these yet? And when they kept getting delayed, I remember thinking, I do not want this to happen to Oakland the way that it happened to Washington, because then it's really easy for the naysayers for the city of Oakland to say, see. And so I was so relieved that it did not happen, that the A's game was able to finish. The fans stayed off the field, and there could be this mourning together. Whereas the fans there in 1971 for the Senators, they just said, we've had enough. We're out here.
RFK hosted a game October the 10th. This was September the 30th.
Okay. They had 10 days to get the field in better shape again. I also liked how Ron said the last pennant was 1933, and the last time they were a first division club. For people who don't know that expression, that means you finish at the upper half, not the bottom half. It was 1946. It's a lot of losing. And remember, there was two different versions of the Senators. There was one Senators that left and moved to Minneapolis. And the very next year, another expansion team began, taking on the exact same name of Senators.
Josh, you're beating me to it.
I'm
That's
sorry.
exactly what I was going to leap on. Was first, everything that he was saying, that's the spokesman for the fans, right? That is saying these fans deserve better. This team has never had a winning team despite all the people that have come out to support them. And earlier in the game, you had fans chanting that they want Short. Bob Short is the owner who's moving them to Arlington, Texas. And the fans are angry. And those chants are coming through the broadcast. And there is that anger that is coming through at that point saying this fan base has not had winning teams in decades. And look at them here. And to roll right into that, I think that Ron Manchin is lobbying for them to get another team. Because at this time period, I want you to consider the Washington Senators moved to Minneapolis, moved to become the Minnesota Twins in 1960. When did the next Washington Senators arrive? The next year. They got a team in 1961. How about Milwaukee? Milwaukee loses the Braves to Atlanta. When do the Brewers arrive? 1970 from Seattle. Kansas City loses the A's to Oakland. When do the Kansas City Royals get their team? A couple of years later. They lose them after the 67 season. The Royals arrive in 1969. This is a time period where, similar to, in more recent time, the Cleveland Browns moving to Baltimore to become the Ravens, and a new Cleveland Browns franchise arrives. The NFL says you get to keep all your Cleveland Browns records, even though all of your players and coaching staff are actually now wearing Ravens purple. We're going to keep the Cleveland Browns history with you. Well, the Senators, and suddenly there was another Senators. There was Kansas City, and suddenly there was another Kansas City squad. Milwaukee, and then there was another Milwaukee team. Seattle loses the Pilots. It's not long after that Seattle gets the Mariners. And so in this time period, I think that Ron Manchin is trying to fight for Washington to get a third crack at things.
This is the expansion era of Major League Baseball. From 62 to about 77, constantly saw the Expos arrive, the Mariners arrive, the Blue Jays arrive, the Padres arrive. As Jesse said, there's now a Royals. There's additional teams that are coming in these cities that had lost teams and are getting them back. Yeah, he is lobbying. You're right. And if we were doing this show back in 1971, we would probably think like, oh yeah, they're going to get one. They're going to get one like in a year now. They're going to get one.
Can you imagine Ken Korach going on air? And we mentioned the Montreal broadcasters and the feel of we're losing our team. Can you imagine Ken Korach going, look at these fans. Look at these fans. Baseball should return to Oakland, and sooner rather than later. And that being an honest to goodness thing that people thought this has a shot.
Mm-hmm. Once again, it goes to time capsules, right? And the time capsule that we're in right now, Major League Baseball has been saying for two different commissioners now that we're not going to expand until we have all 30 teams in viable long-term stadiums, right? So once the A's and once the Tampa Bay Rays have shovels in the ground and we know where they're playing, then we'll expand. Well, the A's are going to be in Sacramento for at least 3 years, if not 4 years. And it looks like the Rays are finally going to get theirs, but the shovels are not in the ground, which means expansion's a long ways away. So for Ken or for Vince or for Dallas or for Jenny or for Johnny Dasco or Chris Carey, it would feel really hollow to say that on the air because it would be giving people hope when there really isn't much hope. It would be false hope.
Yes. Yes, the tone has changed. The fact that there has only been 2 relocations this century, although we are right now seeing with every passing year, there are going to be more owners that say, we need a new stadium or else. This is that great time period of stadium lobbying. We need a brand new ballpark or ...
When I Kind of review what we've discussed today, Jesse, between being in the stands at the Coliseum for the final 3 games, listening to the calls of Ken and Jenny, the Expos, the Senators. It makes me think about how the crowd, how you feed off the emotions of the crowd. In Oakland, it was sold out. It was packed. It was raucous. It was fun. It was a party. It embodied what Oakland was and can still be. In Washington, there's 14,000 people, and they're angry. And how I feel like the words that you find as an announcer, the emotions, you take on the emotions of the place, whether those emotions are anger, whether it's those anger leads to destruction, whether it's sadness, tears, the song that gets played by the DJ and how that sets the tone for you, and how all of that comes together with your emotions, your words, and how you're able to get through the broadcast professionally.
The word that comes to mind for me is grief. And we come back to that idea of death. My grandparents were in Brooklyn. Both of my parents were born in Brooklyn. My maternal grandfather was a Brooklyn Dodgers fan. He gave me his Brooklyn Dodgers baseball cap. And in talking with him, and he is now since passed on, that when the Brooklyn Dodgers left to go to Los Angeles, how many books, how many movies, how many TV shows, how many songs were inspired? There was such a feeling of mournfulness that the Mets came in 1962. The Dodgers and the Giants left New York following the 57 season. And yet the Brooklyn Dodgers leaving Brooklyn was devastating. Josh, let me play one more clip for you. One last clip on the show today. It's not a broadcast clip. It's just a clip at the very end of a team leaving a city. The team goes to a new city. The city that they're leaving is going to get their own team not very long after that. And yet, I just wanted to show this to you.
The score is now 6-6 in the top of the 11th inning when manager Bobby Bragan comes out to make another pitching change. And you can hear the boos as the fans feel that Bragan is sympathetic toward Braves management. He calls for number 22, Dick Kelly, who comes on to replace Chichi Olivo with Dodger runners on first and second. The Dodgers punch a run across and are leading 7-6 as the Braves now bat in the last of the 11th. With one out and Mac Jones at first, Hank Aaron is coming up to bat against Dodger reliever Bobby Miller. Hank swings, and it's a drive to center field. Ron Fairley makes the catch. And he throws back to first to try to get Jones. Out! A double play, and the game is over. The Dodgers win 7-6. A heartbreaking defeat for the Braves and the end of the last Braves game ever played in Milwaukee. Fans start to come out onto the field. Someone wants to grab some infield dirt. I wonder if he still has it. And now others storm the field.
So that is the final game for the Milwaukee Braves in Milwaukee. There were a couple of different things about that I wanted to show you. First, this was the very first time in the different clips that we watched. How about the booing for the manager? Because the fans believe Bobby Bragan is ready to go to Atlanta. And second, what a play to end Milwaukee Braves baseball. I think the umpire got it wrong.
Umpire definitely got it wrong. I think that's the first time in my life that I've heard, again, I go back to the DJ and what song they're going to play. That's what you play New Year's Eve.
Yes.
What's the line? Will all saints be forgot? I don't think I've ever heard that song anywhere other than New Year's Eve or a movie in which the scene is New Year's Eve. and that song gets played. And what a choice to play after the final out. Now, there wasn't the quantity of songs available back then. This also makes me want to give a shout out to how in 1981, when there was Billy Ball and there was a new owner for the Oakland A's, and that's when they started to play rock and roll music and pop music. It was organs that were played at ballparks, and how much that changed things in Oakland. But I think when it comes to the booing, it's who do you direct your anger toward? There wasn't a luxury suite where you could turn around and point at the owner. I don't think the owner is there at the ballpark if he's moving the team. So who do you direct your anger to? You have this anger that's built up. And fortunately, that anger was not toward Frank Robinson with the Expos or to Mark Kotze with the A's. It was love for them. It was respect. And so it's fascinating booing a manager. He's got a job to do. He wants to keep the job next year. But how when you're just so angry, this need to vent toward something, someone.
I also enjoy the tradition of getting dirt. How often have we seen this now with people wanting dirt from the field? Did you see the video of the A's fans receiving the dirt?
Yes.
At a funeral, right? At a funeral, you shovel the dirt over the casket. And this is the opposite way. This is where you take the dirt home with you.
Quick story from Thursday's A's finale. I got a press pass so that I could say goodbye to the press box and to see some old friends in the media. It was down on the field. And I was holding a coffee cup and I was looking for a trash can to toss it away. And I couldn't find one. And I thought, all right, I'll just hang on to it. And then I thought about getting some dirt. I thought, you know what? I want some Coliseum dirt. So I went over to like a corner and I wasn't sure if I was going to get kicked out, but I started to scoop up a little bit of dirt into this coffee cup. And then one of the groundskeepers, and I just put a little bit in there. And then one of the groundskeepers said, get more, fill it up all the way to the rim. Share some with other people because you need a shovel to help you get more in there. And I said, no, I want the clay on my hands. I want the clay on my hands. And so I scooped up the dirt and I got almost all the way to the top because I didn't want it to be falling all over the place. And so I have photos of me and it looks like I'm holding a coffee cup. Well, I am, but there's Coliseum dirt inside there. And then I wanted to sit in the stands for the final game. I wanted to be in the bleachers, which is where my first game was. And I shared some of the dirt. This guy, Jay, I shared some of the dirt with him so that he could take some home.
That's the best answer you can ever give if someone said, hey, Josh, you got some dirt on the A's? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do. You want some?
Yeah, I've had a lot of dirt on the A's. As a kid, as a reporter, it was my job to dig up some dirt as a reporter.
But as a ball player, you want to get your uniform dirty.
Yep.
It shows that you've worked hard.
Yep. Yeah. Heavy episode, Jesse, but
yeah. What do we say? Dust in the air.
Infield dust in the eyes. A lot of infield dust in the eyes.
Loss. A profound feeling, a profound sense of loss and of hurt, as Ken Korach said.
Mm-hmm.
So how does a broadcaster say goodbye to a city? I would say wholeheartedly.
Yeah. From the heart. For Jesse Goldberg-Strassler of the Lansing Lugnets, I'm Josh Suchon of the Albuquerque Isotopes. This is Crafting the Call.